Welcome to the Hidden Bookcase. Come in, have a seat, get comfy.
It's just next to the sliding library ladder and right below the shelf titled Historical Fantasy.
Pick a book, your favourite book. That's the one that opens this room. Inside you'll find a warm fire, a loving cat, and a wide skylight to the stars.
And a really towering to-be-read file.
I'm Morgan, I use they-them pronouns, and I am Fantasy Google Maps.
I'm Sorren, I use he-him pronouns, and I am a vengeful hedge maze.
We've been friends for 10 years and are always swapping books.
But despite having the same taste in books, we never get round to reading each other's recommendations. It's always just another book on the pile.
It's a seriously big pile now. It might crush me in my sleep. So, each month we're going to force each other to read a book.
The new reader will give a blind summary of the book. We'll both go away and read it, and then we'll return to chat about it with you guys.
So this week, let's get to talking about...
A Marvellous Light by Freya Marske.
So, Sorren, tell me about A Marvellous Light.
A Marvellous Light is a historical fantasy/romance novel set in Edwardian England following a young baronet, Robin, who accidentally gets assigned to a magical government position, and his magician colleague, Edwin, and the two of them are trying to unravel the mystery of what happened to Robin's predecessor.
Where did you discover it?
You know what? I think I literally just saw it become available in the library, and I was like, okay, this is fantasy, and it's available as an audiobook at this very moment. Sometimes your library doesn't have a whole lot of fantasy, and then if something new becomes available, you will just read it regardless. But I was very pleasantly surprised with this book.
Yeah, it's been sitting on my bookshelf for like 6 months now, because I bought it in the Waterstones hardback sale in December.
Ah.
So when you suggested it, I was like, yes, let's do it. It's so orange. Mine has sprayed edges as well, so it's like proper orange.
That's the Waterstones edition.
Yeah.
Wait, what does the hardcover look like?
It's boring. It's blue with silver writing. But the orange nicely accents the sort of like the orange of the vibe. Like it's a different colour orange, but it does accent it.
I'm a little bit jealous of the silver writing though, because mine is just white.
Yeah, I was expecting something like a bit nicer underneath with the, you know, the curly vibes on the front.
Yes, with the pattern of the dust cover and all of the William Morris references within the book.
Yeah.
But you're right, we're getting ahead of ourselves. So should we listen to your blind reaction?
Yeah, we're doing a little spicy. It's fine.
It's fine.
Keeping the audience on their toes. So what do I know about A Marvellous Light by Freya Marske? Nothing, basically. The pitch that has been given to me, I can't remember by who, was it's like Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, but hornier. I haven't read Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, but I know it's about like two men in like 1800s maybe, being magic and also like upper society, like very much kind of like Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility kind of vibes. I haven't read either of those either. So yeah, it's very orange, my cover. It's pretty, got this sort of like flowery design, and I don't know if that's relevant or if it's just like very much in vogue at the moment for cover design. And it's got two dudes on the front. I don't know which one's which, but I know this is MLM romance, so I'm guessing it's about these two. Yeah, can't wait to read.
You know what? I'm still not 100% sure which is which.
I don't know. One of them's got a walking stick, but...
I know, neither of them use one, which I was kind of upset about, to be honest.
I would assume that the popped collar is Robin, and then maybe also because like he has the pain curse, maybe like he uses it to support himself, but like it's never said in the book. I'm assuming that Edwin would not wear a popped collar. I feel like he's too smart. Oh, but the guy on the left has a cigarette in his hand.
Yeah, so I guess that might be Edwin then. Well, that doesn't really, because both of them technically smoke.
I think the one on the right has more of the like, you know, Vogue hair kind of vibe.
Yeah, that's true. It's the messy hair, yeah.
I feel like that's a Robin thing. Having not read Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, or Pride and Prejudice, or Sense and Sensibility, I think I was quite right on the vibes.
Yeah, I think so. Although, I would say less happens in Pride and Prejudice, and probably less happens in Sense and Sensibility as well. Haven't read that one yet.
Yeah. I mean, I think I got close. It's not Regency, but like I thought it was. I don't know anything about history, despite doing a classics degree. And I really was just like, oh yeah, I'm just assuming it's just Regency because you know that's very in vogue moment. And then they were like a car, and I was like, I'm sorry.
A car.
And then they were like Asquith, and I was like, I'm pretty sure I recognize that name. And then I looked up Asquith and I was like, oh. So my first impressions, I have
Yes.
two very key first impressions. First one was when they said horny, I wasn't expecting it to be that horny.
I know.
It was so instantly horny. And I was like, give me a sec. I need to, okay, let me set the scene for you. I am at work. I'm at my lovely little barista job. I'm just on my break. I'm sitting there eating my little sandwich, drinking a cup of green tea, and I'm just reading. And suddenly they start banging, and I'm just there at work on my little 20-minute lunch break, like, what?
The first time I read this, I was listening to it, and I was listening to it primarily on commutes. And it kept happening that they would just go for it while I was on the tube, and I'd be making eye contact with some random male office worker, and I'd be trying to just sit there and keep the most neutral possible facial expression while this was happening. And it was not successful.
But it was good. I will say. You can really tell that Freya Marske started out in fan fiction.
You really can.
She knows how to write a sex scene, and it's believable, it's realistic, the tension is perfect. Like, as soon as I found out she was a fanfiction writer, I was like, this makes so much sense.
This all makes sense. Absolutely same.
Yeah. Did it maybe mean that I was envisioning Arthur and Merlin for about half of the book? Yes. But, I think that's valid. You've got the one who's like very much a jock, and you've got the other one who's magical. It's there. I'm not crazy. The second thing that I had as my first impression, and I am unfortunately going to have to mention J.K. Rowling.
Tragic.
Very quickly. Yeah, we don't support. But my note, literally 16 pages in, is Freya Marske really looked at chapter 1 of Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince and said, I can make a whole book out of that.
Wait, what happens in...
It's the chapter where the Muggle Prime Minister keeps getting visited by Fudge and keep being told about magic. And just the entire vibes that I got was just like, that's essentially what the setup is here. But make it gay, make it not transphobic. But I love this book. It was great.
I'm so glad.
So
I was
fun.
like, I feel like Morgan will love this one.
Just the writing style, was so fanfiction-y, so vibey. It had a good pacing, it had good vibes. There was no miscommunication trope.
Yes. I like that when they do have an argument, it's for legitimate reasons and not because one of them overheard half of a sentence through a door and decided to take it personally.
Yeah. No, it's very much like they have legitimate reasons.
Yeah.
And even then they're still like, I'm going to be kind to you, even though we're having an argument. Tell me to stay and I will.
I simply can't get over them, quite frankly. I went and looked at reviews of this book because I was curious, and I saw a lot of people being like, I just wasn't convinced by them emotionally, and I've never been so confused in my life.
What? They literally understand each other on a fundamental level despite being such different people, because their life experiences have made them two halves of a whole that can complement and understand each other and just look at the things that other people see as flaws and see them as beautiful, amazing things.
I am nothing like you, and yet I feel more myself when I'm with you.
I am ascending. I am through the stratosphere. Oh, it's just so soft. And the way they're so soft with each other.
Absolutely.
And the way they get so angry on each other's behalf instantly.
Yes.
The one person pushing themselves down and the other person being like, absolutely not. I will fight for you, bestie. Stop it. You are amazing. I love you. They do say I love you very quickly.
They do, especially if you think about the timeline, which I felt like when I listened to it, it took longer, obviously, because audiobooks just take longer. And then when I was reading it, I was like, wow. I feel like it's compelling enough.
Exactly. It's about the repression. It's about that I've been looking someone like you all my life, and now I've found you. Why would I wait to say anything?
Precisely. I'm not going to let go of this now that I have it. Even Robin has that little moment where he's like, oh, we're discussing the events of the day in bed together. When did we become so domestic? We met, this week. But because of the progression of it, I feel like it works.
It does work. It works so well.
It's the combination of the queer oppression and also the high-stakes near-death experiences.
It's about the near-death experiences driving intimacy. It's the glad to be alive sex trope.
But yes, no, the writing style, it does have that echo of fanfiction. You're very right. She has a lovely way with metaphors.
It's character-driven. Despite there being plot, there isn't actually that much plot in the end.
It's definitely primarily character. Although this time I was making notes about all the visions and stuff and coming up with insane theories. But the first time I read it, I was completely just obsessed with Robin and Edwin and barely paying attention to the plot. Like, not paying attention, but it wasn't at the forefront of my mind.
Yeah. I took notes for like the first 30 pages and then I was just like invested and I just stopped taking notes.
Yeah, I don't think I would have been able to take notes on the first read of this, to be honest, so I commend your effort.
I mean, one of my notes is on the line, what on earth had possessed Edwin to show Blythe one of his own creations? And then me just going, oh, he's a nerd. And then an arrow off going, definitely a Sorren character.
No, that's too quickly for you to be like that. Sorry.
Page 23.
No, I know exactly. That's only like Edwin's second scene. God. Look, I'm not going to defend myself.
You don't have to, it's okay.
It's the inferiority-superiority complex. It's the fact that he has like so much rage but can't do anything about it.
It's okay, I support you.
Thank you. But yes, characters, I'm curious to know who your favourite was.
Great question. I mean, Edwin is so autistic coded.
Thank you, because I had notes about that as well.
And it meant so much to me. And also just like magical librarian, magical person who uses their magic to just catalogue books and is more invested in inventing magic than doing magic. And just like everything about Edwin was so perfect. The way that he doesn't understand how like society is supposed to work. And then Robin comes along and does like everything perfectly. But he's like, maybe I can like learn to like do this with you. And just... I think I loved Edwin the most. But Robin is very close in my heart because, you know, the sort of knows exactly how to work a room but is secretly boiling with rage or secretly boiling with apathy even is a perfect trope. It's such a good trope.
His whole charisma thing works really well in this setting where he's also like constantly in pain and incredibly stressed about the whole having just discovered magic is real thing. It's interesting because you immediately see that sort of core of him because you get his point of view.
Also the chronic pain rep. Like, I know it's magic, but it was so interesting to have that be like a main part of the plot. Yeah. These characters are just so like effortlessly complex and then also like dealing with different issues. And I really enjoyed that and seeing how it was worked into a story so seamlessly.
Effortlessly complex is a great way of putting it, honestly. Every little strand of their own tapestry then gets woven into the plot. It's just done so neatly and so satisfyingly. They
fit together so seamlessly.
They do.
Also, they're so gay for each other, like, instantly.
I know, it's so... The bit when they meet and then Robin is immediately like, usually I don't look at other men like this unless we're about to have sex.
Yeah. And Edwin being like, he was a perfect specimen of incurious Englishhood or English manhood. Perfect. Besties, we're 20 pages in.
And then Robin later on has the audacity to say that he wasn't attracted to Edwin when they first met. And I'm like, you were a little bit.
You were repressing it because you have a whole complex about not liking people that way. But okay, I do have one scene I need to talk about. And that is the magical sex scene. The one with the blue light and the nerves. And I'm sorry, but that is literally out of a fan fiction. That is like straight up like seeing how the magic system works and going, I can make this horny. I can make this into a sex
thing. It really
is,
isn't it?
My note that I put next to it is only fanfic authors are allowed to publish books now.
I love as well that it somehow becomes plot relevant because they're like, what if we played with, you know, slowing down your pulse? And then Edwin's like, okay, I need to kill him.
Like, good way to tie in the sex so that people can't skip the scene.
So I've never seen that done. Ever.
And the way they only have to look at each other to understand what's going on and be like, I slowed your pulse. Because he gave him permission earlier. The fact that he gave him permission to do that and never said like when exactly, but like, and then he used it to save his life and he knew he had the permission to do it.
Can we talk about like the whole theme of consent and how that like plays into the magic system? Because I think I'm so obsessed with it.
Yes. Oh, it's so good. Like, contracts are such a genius method of doing things. Again, like, it's a fanfiction thing to be, like, so central on consent. Like, you see it in Anyway the Wind Blows by Rainbow Rowell. It's also in All for the Game. This sudden trend of focusing on consent above all else is so important to me.
I haven't finished All for the Game and I haven't read Anyway the Wind Blows yet, but especially with those kinds of characters who have had stuff done to them by people, then when it comes to that contrast in the relationship, I feel like it's not more important because it's always important, but for them to finally have that.
Yeah, and the fact that like their fight comes from that question of consent and whether Edwin was planning on violating it. The fact that it's so key a theme, I'm so emotional about it.
The series being called The Last Binding and then people using the Goblin's Bridle on people which is like a literal binding, and then where Robin thinks about how it would be better if Edwin would tie him up, having had that traumatic experience like a few days before, but then trusting Edwin to do it.
The just like immediate, I will put my life in your hands. I trust you with my life.
And the fact that whenever Robin needs a spell done, he trusts Edwin above anyone else to do it.
Even though everyone else is telling him you shouldn't trust Edwin to do
Yeah.
it, like he's got no magic, yada yada yada. Robin's like, I trust you. And it's like that faith in Edwin that is basically all he needs. And then he just go ahead and inherits all the magic, which icon moment from Flora Sutton. I love her. She's just like, I see that you are a broken man. Have some magic.
Here's a house. God, no. I also love the magic house. I love that it like responds to them.
Responding to intruders, absolutely great. Responding to Edwin having an orgasm, elite god tier. 10 out of 10. Speaking of moments with the house,
Yes.
the whole vibe of sort of sinking into the house and into the land specifically,
Yes.
and
Yes.
how Sistersong that was, and him losing himself for a second and becoming part of the house. So perfect. Like the magic of the land, the everything is one. I will protect it with my life. Like knowing the boundaries and being able to sense intruders. Effervescent.
I also thought it was interesting how they like brought gender into magic without making it like a gendered magic system. It wasn't like, oh, women do like land magic and men do like this kind of magic. But the fact that Edwin seemed to have an affinity for that magic that was viewed as women's magic and therefore not studied and not actually like taken seriously by the magical society is very interesting, and I'm very curious to see where they go with that.
Also, like Edwin just sort of noting magic, like when he goes to the maid and asks for that spell to just take stains out, and then when he goes to his family, they're like, "I've never seen this spell before. What are you talking about?" It's like an everyday spell that maids use all the time, and Edwin's noticed that and been like, knowledge, let's go. Like he's just. I'm just making movements with my hand, and I don't know how to verbalize. And this is an audio medium.
I guess it's the thing of like, correct me if I'm wrong, of him taking it seriously and viewing it in a different way. Edwin's inability to do magic in like a normal way, I suppose, no, not an inability, but struggle, it very much also feels like a disability narrative in a way that kind of parallels Robin's struggle with the curse, I think, 'cause it's that he has to rely on other things and he has to do things more carefully because he doesn't have that raw power to fall back on, so he has to basically figure out a cleverer way of doing it. He has to figure out workaround.
I think also one of the satisfying things was I don't like historical fiction that is very like feminist TM in a 21st century way, because that's just not realistic to how most people acted in those periods. And I did like how Edwin he's not feminist, he's not go girl power, but he has this respect for women and for female magicians that a lot of other people don't have. It's very well explored how like everybody is a little bit misogynistic. Robin with Maud is quite misogynistic. It's realistically done and it's never pushed to like awful. It's sort of just like an accepted fact of society. It's done realistically in a way that still doesn't make you hate the characters, which I really, really enjoyed.
Yeah, I think she strikes that balance really well. It's that period typical like, oh, but should Maud go to university? Wouldn't she kind of be wasting her time? And then it's interesting as well, yeah, you mentioned that Edwin's kind of better at it, like he's the one that argues for it. He's like, maybe you should give her the chance. He is somewhat marginalised in his own society, so when he sees that marginalisation of women, he can connect to it in some way. And whereas Robin, surrounded by magicians, then he's no longer at the top of the pile. But before that, he's like a rich white man who went to Oxford.
Oh, my other quote. Another few slow circles of Robin's thumb. A shadow flickered in his expression. Edwin wondered from nowhere what he would look like if Robin's heart was breaking. It was a terrible thought to have. He had it anyway. It's a good quote. It's like, oofed. But then my note just next to it is, don't Chekhov's gun me like this.
You're not wrong.
And a few bits later, it was a terrible thought. He had it anyway. That phrasing.
The thread of self-sabotage that like runs through Edwin. Like, because it is kind of his fault, that argument later, if he had just said.
The whole time he's got one foot out the door and he's like, but this is fine. I can have this because I won't have it forever.
He's taken it away from himself mentally already, so when it looks like he might be able to keep it, he suddenly throws it because he doesn't want it to be taken away from him.
I'm so excited to see like where the relationship goes in the next book. And the plot, the magic system is so interesting. You know, you've got fantasy Google Maps, you've got cradling. Cradling is so cool. And also the fact that Edwin feels the need to like have that crutch of still using the string. And that's how Robin is first introduced to the world. And then later on just finds out that that's not necessarily the normal thing. but how he like never disapproves of it, never like laughs at Edwin for it.
Actually, I had this thought the first time I was reading it, and I kind of still wish it was the thing. When he's in the maze and he doesn't have it, I was kind of wishing that they would use a shoelace or something, because I was like, this almost feels like a disability aid. I like that he ends up using it again later.
Maybe we'll see that in book 2.
And the one-handed cradling is so interesting.
Yes.
It reminds me a lot of sign language, because obviously there's different... You can like fingerspell with one hand in ASL, I think, but BSL tends to use 2 hands.
Yeah.
And then the way that Edwin was talking about having to like have different movements to like define silver. And I was like, oh, is this just, you are just spelling out a contract, like you're just talking? You can almost understand it.
It's a very sensible magic system. It made me think of finger tutting from the magicians.
Yes.
Like that's what I was kind of visualizing in my head of like the
absolutely same.
The hands, and there's nothing better, to be honest.
I would love an adaptation of this. I mean, look, I'd be terrified of an adaptation of this as well, because it would have to be perfect, or else my life would be ruined. But
it's a very visual book. Like I could see every scene. I could see this being a short TV show or a movie. Moving on for a sec. I appreciate the fact that the 4 most powerful characters in this book are going to be old women. Literally, everyone's been searching for this mystical thing for like thousands of years, and they just on their lunch break were like, found it.
Don't get me started on the plot stuff. I have many thoughts, Morgan. First of all, okay, the contract's been split into coin, cup, and knife. That's almost tarot, right?
Yeah,
apart from
that's
wands.
What I was thinking.
Surely the Fae have the wand, or there's a secret 4th family maybe, but
absolutely.
Also, I really want the Fae to be like brought into this. I'm absolutely obsessed. Like the fact that it's contract magic and it comes from the Fae, incredible.
It makes so much sense.
It all fits together so neatly. And also, okay, Robin saw he sees an old woman get murdered in one of his visions, and then after Flora Sutton gets murdered, he specifies in his brain, he was like, but I saw a different old woman getting murdered. So surely that's one of the others.
That's 2 out of 4. Who said there were 3? It was in the myth that there were 3.
In the myth, it was 3 families.
But there are 4
women. Girls who go to get it, exactly. That has to mean something. That has to.
Definitely. Also, the genius of melting the coin into rings so that nobody would figure it out. That was so cool. I am very proud of myself. I was looking through my notes and I had completely forgotten I thought this. But page 20, when he's looking at the oak heart clock, I wrote, the clock is either the MacGuffin or is hiding the MacGuffin.
Oh my god. Well done. I did not get that at all.
Boom.
I'm amazed at how much foreshadowing there is in general. The first thing that gets said about Miss Morrissey is her tapping her ring and it annoying Robin, and rereading it, I was like, I'm about to scream.
The thing you're looking for is right there.
Also, incredibly brief segue to Miss Morrissey, but I love Miss Morrissey. Yes. I love Kitty. Just having Indian characters in the setting made me very happy.
The 2 of them are just so iconic, so hyper competent, and everyone else is like, what's going on? And they don't even bat an eye when they find out that these 2 are banging.
Look, Miss Morrissey has been working with Edwin for like years, and I don't feel like that man exudes heterosexuality.
She saw him staring at Reggie and was like, I understand. Okay.
She was like, I have competition for Reggie's heart.
Why was Reggie so...
I know.
What did he do? Was he just hot? Like...
Maybe he was just hot.
It's fair enough. I do like having a character who's central to the plot who is dead for basically the whole book. Like, I am obsessed with that trope. Because, like, discovering who they are from the outside.
Having Edwin having recollections of him and Robin just having the information from everybody else is interesting, because you get that contrast of Edwin having all these emotions and Robin only having the facts.
And how he's the one who puts it together that Edwin and Miss Morrissey were both completely head over heels. Also, another spicy world building thing I loved, the locker room. Such a genius play on words.
I do love how they incorporated Reggie not being a magician and then not having a lock, so when he went missing, nobody could find him. We haven't talked about the blonde woman.
Okay, let's talk about the blonde woman.
Who we are mutually convinced is Hawthorne's sister.
I mean, definitely. She's mentioned so much she has to be plot relevant, as does Hawthorne. It's way too mysterious. There's that one vision where Hawthorne and, I can't remember the sister's name, and Edwin are in the room together reading. Maybe it's the past?
My argument is that it's the future and they're in America, because the ocean is in the vision. That sounds insane when I say it like that. But they draw so much attention to Hawthorne going to America. Then also the fact that this blonde woman is apparently doing like insane magic in half of Robin's visions. And they specifically mentioned that Hawthorne's sister had like too much magic and that like made her go mad because she was just a woman.
Maybe one of their parents was like Flora Sutton's friend, or their grandparents even was Flora Sutton's friend. Maybe this girl is the next keeper. The contract It's just for the British Isles, right? If it's just for the British Isles, but we know for a fact that like Edwin has this hyperfixation on magic in other countries, and those aren't made by the same contract. So maybe there's like different fae in different countries that you have to make a deal with. And especially like if you're a magician, maybe if you go outside of your land, quote unquote, which would be the whole of the British Isles, your magic gets weaker. Like we see Edwin when he leaves the Saturn estate, his magic gets weaker. We see when he leaves Penhalick, his magic gets weaker. And like maybe Hawthorne might not notice that because he doesn't have any anymore, supposedly. Or maybe he's made a contract with something else. And that's why he doesn't have magic in the British Isles anymore.
That's very interesting.
Maybe the sister has made a contract with something else and that's why she has so much magic.
I'm actually incredibly curious to see how this plays out, with Walt not being able to move against him, to have disadvantaged your villain like that. I mean, they didn't say... Did they say Walt's associates? I can't remember if they did now.
Maybe, let me check. But he said directly or indirectly, so like he can't like tell...
He can't make somebody else do it.
Yeah.
If someone else does it without his knowledge, then that's not his fault, arguably. That Walt would not cause directly or indirectly any harm of any kind to come to Robin, to Maud Blythe, or any other member of Robin's household, or to Edwin himself. That in exchange Walt would leave here with Flora Sutton's coin, and that Robin would liaise with the Magical Assembly and give truthful report of the contents of his visions.
It's interesting to see how they'll creatively get around that.
Both parties are going to play with that, I think. They've already played with that in terms of Robin boring the Magical Assembly to death with stupid visions that don't contain anything useful. Although I'm sure they'll turn that around and he'll say something innocuous and that will actually become really important.
He'll be like, let me tell you about this very detailed building. They're like, we know the building.
Actually, it's interesting because Robin said at one point that he thinks that the visions surround people that he's been around. But I'm like, surely all of these are from your point of view. When he walks into the Magical Assembly, he specifically says this is the exact view I saw. The visions that we've seen are like the hedge maze and the vision of Edwin. I don't think they're disembodied at all. Every single time it's been like something that he's witnessed. Not Hawthorne on the ship yet. I guess we're ready for final thoughts. Morgan, how did you feel about A Marvellous Light?
Show-stopping, spectacular, 10 out of 10, 5 stars. We'll come again. Beautiful.
I'm so happy.
How about you? What's your opinion?
I'm entirely on the same page. I mean, I recommended this, right? So it's obvious that I like it, but this was a favourite book of all time, instantly.
Yeah.
I mean, I only read it a few months ago, and I was still entirely ready to read it again for this episode. Do we have any recommendations for people that liked A Marvellous Light?
Read it again.
Yeah. I mean, that was what I did, and it worked great, guys. So
I feel like it's one of those books where if you read it again, you will get more out of it the second time because there are those Easter eggs thrown in.
But in all seriousness, I do have a recommendation, and that's The Queer Principles of Kit Webb by Cat Sebastian, which is another historical gay romance, this time set in the 18th century. It follows a young lordling who enlists an ex-highwayman to rob his own father, and it's unusually class-conscious for a romance set in that era. It doesn't just sweep the wealth disparity between the protagonists under the rug, and one of the two protagonists actually is disabled in this one, or explicitly disabled, and it's really well handled and explored, I think.
I have a recommendation that I'm currently reading. So I got a arc of it from NetGalley called The Path of Thorns by A.G. Slatter. It's got the same sort of historical fantasy-ish, except it's set in a different world. It's set in like a Victorian Regency era style fantasy world. It's about a governess who is secretly there to avenge her mother. And it's got a werewolf as the love interest. It is heterosexual, but I'm quite invested in it. Despite the fact that it doesn't seem to be central to the narrative at all, I'm actually here for the romance, which is very rare for me. Next time, I will be forcing Sorren to read The Prior of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. And until then, you're always welcome through the bookcase.
Don't forget to give the cat a scritch on your way out. Thank you for listening to The Hidden Bookcase, a production of Plain Our Prod. On this episode, you heard Morgan Greensmith and Sorren Briarwood discussing A Marvellous Light by Freya Marske. You can find out more about this book at freyamarske.com, and you can follow Marske at Freya Marske on Twitter. You can find The Hidden Bookcase on Twitter at Hidden Bookcase, and on Instagram, Facebook, Tumblr, and TikTok at Hidden Bookcase Podcast. Find out more about Plain Our Prod at plainourprod.com. Know what we should read next, or want to chat to us about your thoughts on this episode's read? You can reach us at thehiddenbookcase@gmail.com, or send us a DM on social media. We'd love to hear from you. If you're enjoying The Hidden Bookcase, please consider leaving us a rating or review. Or you can always tell a friend how to find us. Your whispers are the best way for bookworms to discover our show. August is High Fantasy Month at The Hidden Bookcase. On our next episode, which will be out on Monday the 15th of August, that's 4 weeks' time from now, Monday the 15th of August, since it's a longer title than usual, we'll be discussing The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. We hope to see you then, and in the meantime, you're always welcome through the bookcase.